Hello Giants fans, welcome to Giants Baseball 101. I'm Gabe Vaughn, your host. The Giants beat the Angels today 9-6. Shohei Ohtani wasn't hitting or pitching for the Angels today. Certainly that helped the Giants out quite a bit. Logan Webb pitched 4 1/3 innings for the Giants. He gave up 4 earned runs. Definitely not the best outing for Logan Webb. And if you'd ask, how much stock now are we putting into spring training performances for the Giants starting pitchers, because Ross Stripling too, it's not just a question about Webb today. No, it expands way more than that. Ross Stripling, his last outing, he didn't pitch well. He gave up 4 runs, so it's a real question. How much stock are we putting into this? Because Logan Webb and Ross Stripling, the Giants are going to need them to be good, not average. Giants are going to need them to be good, quality pitchers in 2022. Pitch out of jams when they get into them, and basically not allow runs. So that's the question. How much stock are we putting into bad performances like these when we see them? The most straightforward answer is, I don't know. I think we can definitely hope for the best. I mean, spring training's definitely the time, I think, for any player to work through his weaknesses and kind of knock them off, as opposed to taking, several performances in the season to do that. That's the good thing. I think definitely we can hope for the best on Logan Webb, Ross Stripling, and Anthony DeSclafani, and even Alex Wood, even though he's not the guy we're the most hopeful about. I definitely think there's room to hope for the best on him. I mean, obviously he was really good for the Giants in 2021. He's been an all-star, I believe, multiple times in his career, and before he signed with the Giants for the first time, he just had a track record of success. In 2022, it was a bad season for him. Definitely not good, especially for the big money that he was making. But at this time, I think that we can certainly just be optimistic about Alex Wood, that at least he'll be average, and that his ERA in 2023, I think it's got a good chance of at least being below 500, maybe being in the 400s, and he might be great. We just don't know how things are going to turn out. And Jacob Junis, he's the other starter who we can definitely be optimistic about due to the potential he showed in 2022, throwing his, I think it was his slider that he lived off of mostly, and he was just great. Now the main question is, with the Giants rotation the way it is, have they effectively replaced Carlos Rodon? Because performance, what you add up to is basically, I guess you could measure it in wins above replacement for players, but you just measure value, and that's really what it comes down to, value in winning games. So the Giants rotation in 2023 and the Giants rotation in 2022, how they compare. And it's really not enough just to say, well, the Giants rotation in 2023 is going to be better. That's what we see, so it's good. They've replaced Carlos Rodon. It's not, in my mind, it's not exactly the same thing, because even if the rotation as a whole were a little bit better, for one thing, that could not be quite enough to make the playoffs, especially if other stuff is not good. And still, it would be possible if the Giants didn't replace Carlos Rodon in the sense, I don't know if I'm making sense here, but you could improve your roster without replacing a big strength that you had, and therefore it's not as big of an improvement as you would have wanted to have. And yeah, again, I don't know if I'm making complete sense here, but the main line is that the Giants need to be significantly better in 2023, like to the point of making the playoffs. I know I've said before a few more wins would have done it, but that's more significant, I think, than you might think, really. We're not just going to look at that and say a few more wins that can easily be solved. I don't know that it can easily be solved. It's doable if the Giants do the right things this year, but I'm not quick to say it's going to be so simple. So, easiest way to understand it, the rotation's going to need to be significantly better in 2023, and just all areas of the team. They're going to have to be better. That's why I say they needed to replace Carlos Rodon. We're going to have to see if they've done that here. It's going to be the same thing offensively, really, and it's definitely looking promising for them. The main headline on the Giants website is basically the competition at catcher, which includes a question of how many catchers they're going to have on their roster. I mean, if the Giants want badly enough to have Joey Bart, Blake Sabol, and Austin Wynns, they might choose to carry 3 catchers just for that. Sometimes that's how it works. And it really looks like Austin Wynns is kind of the underdog here, he might actually have done well to elect free agency when he was initially designated for assignment. He couldn't have known they'd sign Roberto Perez, and he couldn't have known that Blake Sabol would come in and turn out as good as he's turned out, so he just couldn't have known at the time. But I think that Wins actually might have had a better chance going and signing elsewhere. It's looking doubtful that he'll make the opening day roster. I mean, he and Perez are both veterans, but it just seems like Perez's veteran status, for one reason or another, is just the most dominant thing out here. And maybe it's his glove, maybe it's Perez plays better defense. I'm not exactly sure about that. But that's the way the Giants' catching scenario is looking, and I think definitely Joey Bart and Blake Sabol should be on the opening day roster, and whether they want to add Perez in there, that's going to be contingent on a whole lot of other roster questions that it would probably take all night to get into. Like, you look at like the infield and the outfield, Giants would have to say, okay, if we use a roster spot on a third catcher, do we have enough there? And it's, if they have enough by way of starting players, and these guys are tough, they're not going to need like so much rest that the Giants roster gets really squeezed to supply the replacements for it, then the thing might do. But it's just, you want to have your quality players starting every game. I mean, unless it's righty-lefty matchups or you're looking at guys for their recent performance, I don't think that the lineup on a day-to-day, the starting lineup, I don't think it should look a whole lot different from day to day unless there are special reasons for doing that. And it can be even batters against a particular pitcher, although the experts do say not to put too much stock into that. I'm talking about when you do differentiate here. But other than having special reasons for it, I think a lineup should kind of look pretty much the same on a day-to-day basis, unless it's simply that you need to get a guy some at-bats. What the Giants will need on the bench for infield and outfield, that's the other thing. That's the other question they're going to have to answer. And ultimately, all of these things in mind, they're going to have to decide whether they can and should carry three catchers on the roster. Now, on offense in the game today, let's get back to that. Thairo Estrada had 3 hits, including 2 doubles. That's just a great day for him. I think he could be like an extra base hit specialist for the Giants. And to me, I mean, maybe I don't have proper authority to say this because I haven't studied him super deeply, but from what I notice, I think he's like a power guy, and it's really more about extra bases for him, I think, than home runs. He can still provide a lot of value, so to me, that's what Estrada should be swinging for, and he should use his pretty good speed to help him with it on doubles and triples and stuff, and obviously even just hitting the contact in situations where a sacrifice fly or something could score a run. And Casey Schmidt, he had 2 hits, including a double. He is coming along just fine. Like I said before, definitely, he's got to be on the opening day roster, and what the Giants have to do, who they're going to put on the bench, they got to deal with it. I mean, if Schmidt is outperforming VR, and it seems like he will continue to do so in spring training, then it would seem pretty straightforward that VR's got to be the guy to go to the bench so that the Giants can score as many runs as possible. Might seem unfair to VR, but it's kind of the way it is in baseball if a guy outperforms you. I'm not saying VR is not going to be good. I'm saying for the Giants, they might have to think about it quantitatively and just do what's the very best here. And really, as a team, you don't need to feel bad about having good guys on your bench. If the Giants could just perk up to the point where at least at some positions they're good starting and backup, that could just be a plus for them. I mean, sometimes it's the little things that make all the difference in winning games. So we'll see how that goes. Giants are winning these spring training games. That's great to see them pick this up, and their offense at least is looking really good right now. Thank you for watching. This has been Giants Baseball 101. Please subscribe if you haven't. Please leave questions and comments. I'll try to get back to you on those. I'll see you next time on Giants Baseball 101.